How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Last of the Grads. This is from 2021 and is directed by Jenkins and Collin Kliewe. Sorry if I mispronounced that last name. But these two are not just the directors, but the writers and producers as well. So cool to see them having a larger role here. This movie stars Jessica Lange, but if you guys are watching this on YouTube, there's a good chance you know this for featuring two prominent YouTubers. This movie also stars Penguinzo and Huggbees. And to be honest, that's how I found out about this movie, you know. I'm a horror geek, and I really love slashers, and I try to keep my nose to the ground and try to, you know, figure out when a good one's gonna come up. But without these two, this movie may have slipped under my radar. Indie movies, it's really hard for them. They don't always get the best advertising. They don't always get the best release. And a lot of them slip through the cracks, get lost in the fog. And there is a lot of, you know, no budget and sadly no effort horror movies that get cranked out like on a factory. And it's quite easy for stuff to get lost. So, yeah, the idea of, you know, taking two YouTubers, putting them in your movie, and getting kind of a built-in audience that's curious about it, it's a good way to keep your movie from getting lost, and especially if it's a movie like this that does have a story to tell, that does have a team putting forth a solid effort behind it. Yeah, I'd say definitely it's a good idea. Now, as far as the YouTubers themselves, they both do a pretty good job here. And I can tell you that's not always the case. There's a lot of YouTubers that sadly can't act, but these two really do pull off the job pretty well. The writers pulled a smart move here and made their characters in the movie definitely share traits with them in real life. So you are going to get Charlie's creative profanity, and you are going to get Hugbee's sense of sarcasm, which you can tell really would have made him a popular teacher. So yeah, the two pull off a really solid effort. They're not in the movie the longest. Each of them gets a couple scenes, so it's definitely more than a cameo, but they're not the biggest roles in this movie, and I really could have gone for a lot more of each of them. So yeah, not the biggest roles ever, but they are there for a good minute, and I could have gone with a lot more from each. But outside of the YouTubers, how does this movie work? And it's a pretty solid slasher movie. It's not the biggest and the best thing ever, but it really does work out pretty well and definitely does have the feel of an old school 80s slasher. A lot of the tropes are there. For example, the movie's first act is a little bit slow. That's kind of standard slasher fare. What do you do with your characters before the killer shows up? But by the time you get to the final act of this movie really does burn hot and bright, like a slasher should, and one of the best things is the final girl is alerted to the fact that she's in a horror movie, and we still have like 30 minutes of the movie to go, which means we have a good prolonged final chase sequence here. Also, the kills in this movie, there's a good amount of blood and some gore, not quite the hard R 80s gore as you'd see from some of the 80s slashers, but a lot more than you see from most low-budget direct-to-video horror movies, and each of the kills has a sense of effort and choreography behind it, where you can tell they weren't gonna just, you know, stab people and call it a day. And I really do like the effort here. Yeah, not all of the kills work, but a fair amount of them do, and I really have to applaud that effort. So, yeah, good final chase, good kills, but also a really good setting for this movie. This movie takes place in a high school during the last day of school, which a lot of us can definitely relate to. A movie about the last day of school, but it also takes place during this cool lockdown party where all the kids are locked in the high school overnight and they have a dance and they watch movies, and it's a really cool idea for a party. and a really cool setting for a horror movie. So I really do like the setup here. And yeah, it's not perfect. Not everything works. And the first part of this movie is kind of slow. But overall, a really solid slasher effort. And I definitely would recommend it to slasher fans. Without further ado, let's go ahead and talk a bit about the plot. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to say my piece on a few plot points and make sure you guys have a basic understanding as to what this episode's about. We open up with two kids who are about to burn two adults alive. But why are they doing this? Well, we flash back a little bit and we find out that out of these two kids, one is more upfront and outwardly disturbed, and he has an abusive father. The other one is definitely disturbed, but he keeps it much more quiet and shy, and he has an abusive mother. But one day, the one who's more outright about it, he tells his friend about the burning, which I'm guessing has to be a reference to the Tom Savini movie. But in this movie, the burning is sort of that urge for violence, that urge to kill, and he carves into his friend's hand a mysterious symbol, then cuts his own palm, and the two kind of make a blood pact. So he transfers the burning to his friend, and that's when they kill their abusive parents. The shy one then says, "I have a father who's still alive down in Florida," and that's when we see a bunch of news footage talking about the coast-to-coast killer. Basically, from Washington, where this movie started, all the way down to Florida, there's been a series of murders following in a straight line, and people are starting to suspect that all these murders may have been done by the same person, but no one really knows 100% for sure. So it's kind of like a conspiracy theory, the coast-to-coast killer moving all the way across America, killing on his way, you know? So a cool concept. The police at the high school in Florida think about shutting the school down, but they go, nah, it's just a conspiracy theory. Let's keep it open, let's do the dance, it's tradition. And that's where we meet our main girl. It's this blonde girl, and she's best friends with the girl who's organizing the dance. They're gonna, lock everybody in the school, they're gonna have a dance. All these friends are gonna have one last good day with their friends before they all split off for the summer. Pretty cool concept. And then she's not 100% sure if she wants to go when this guy that she likes comes up and says, "Hey, do you want to go to the dance with me?" So yeah, last day of high school is a little bit late for things like this, but hey, she's finally getting a chance with this guy she likes. So those are kind of your three leads. There are a few other leads, like the main girl's father, there's a stoner character, there's a chaperone character, but outside of your main ones, a lot of the side characters aren't the most defined, and to be honest, standard slasher fare, a lot of these guys are just going to be used for murder vignettes. But anyway, she does decide to go to the dance. She gets there and they lock everybody's phones in a box, which is, to be honest, kind of a plot device. But, you gotta make sure the kids are actually focusing on the dance, right? So they go in there, and unbeknownst to them, there's some pranksters outside of the school. Some people who didn't want to go to the dance, but think it would be really funny to break into the school and pull the fire alarm. They all have these rubber Halloween masks, and as they're picking the lock on the side of the school, the killer comes up and kills them all and takes one of their rubber Halloween masks. And with the mask, I get what they were going for. This mask really does look like something you could buy from a Halloween store, although I don't think I've ever seen it sold in one. That being said, it's a little too big for my taste. It makes the killer's head seem a little large. And also, I don't really know what it's supposed to be. It has ears, so you think it's a rabbit, but it kind of has a texture of a bug or something. So throughout the movie, I was kind of like, what's that supposed to be? And I wish one of the characters had said so I would know. So yeah, not the best mask ever, but I do like the idea it's a Halloween mask that anyone could have found at a Spirit Halloween, you know, so I get that. But anyway, the killer gets inside of the school, and that's where we see why a high school is such a good setting for a horror movie. It's big and labyrinthian, and, you know, anyone can sneak off down one of the quarters. It's after hours, so they're all dark. And yeah, people sneak off, and you get the idea that anyone could get picked off, and no one would find out for a good long time, you know? So, a party after hours in a high school, that's a cool, familiar, we all know what a high school's like, a relatable setting, you know? So, definitely a good pick for the movie, you know? But anyway, as I mentioned, the kills, a lot of them do work out pretty well. There's a fun kill with the photocopier where he smashes their heads in it, and then it prints out a photocopy of their faces. There's a kill on a treadmill that's cool, but I don't know if I buy it, you know? He falls down and gets his face shredded on the treadmill, and I'm like, I don't know if that would really do that, but still a cool kill nonetheless. There are a few kills that don't quite work, like one guy gets killed in the locker room, and it's a pretty straightforward stabbing, you know? But most of them, there's a sense of effort and choreography. I'm gonna fight the killer, I'm gonna roll out of the way of his knife, and we're gonna have this chase scene. And like I said earlier, the final girl is alerted pretty early on, which means that she has a good extended chase, and she's gonna be covered in blood, running around trying to get away from the killer for a good long time. Which also, we have a sequence with a flagpole here, which does turn out to be a pretty fun, creative sequence, and I really did like that during the final chase. So, yeah, the movie starts out a little slow, and for whatever reason, during the beginning there are several, like, overly dramatic moments, but by the time you get to the last third of this movie, things are really heating up, and it starts to get really good, which is standard slasher pacing, you know? So it does get to a final act. The final girl is good, the final chase is good, and the burning is a little bit of an interesting, different element that gives it a little more to do without getting sidelined on some weird plot. But that being said, with the two kids at the beginning, it's a creative introduction, but it does kind of lead to these hanging plot threads, you know? Where you go, okay, there's two kids and they're trying to find one of their fathers. But when we get to the time of the movie, if they're looking for their father, why are they killing a bunch of high schoolers? And there were two of them. Why is there only one guy in a mask running around? And it's something that I'm like, I know they're going to answer this at the end of the movie, but rather than being, you know, oh, I wonder what's going to happen there, it's just sort of a little confusing, and it's one of those things I know it's going to be answered later, but it just kind of stays in your head in the wrong way, you know? So, a bit of a hanging plot thread until we finally get to it at the end. I don't know, there could have been some way where this is done better, but whatever, it came out alright. So yeah, it's a solid modern slasher effort, a fair step above a lot of other direct-to-video slashers, a fair bit of gore, and definitely a sense of purpose, and definitely trying to, you know, make it a step up above a lot of the other slashers, and I definitely would recommend it. Plus, the appearances from Penguinzo and Huggbees are a nice little cherry on top, and I wish they were in the movie more. So yeah, definitely would recommend this for slasher fans. If you guys see it, would recommend checking it out. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my slasher movies playlist. If you want to hear me talk about more slasher movies, I've covered everything from early proto-slashers to big franchises, to a few modern horror movies as well. So anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Slasher playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.